Lecture 1, The Growing Role of Informal Caregiving. Hello, welcome to the first lecture of the course. Today, we are going to address several important topics. We will start by introducing the phenomenon of population aging. Then we will address recent demographic changes in the EU and how they are related to informal caregiving. Finally, we will answer the questions of who informal carers are and what are their roles and needs. The aging process presents new requirements, challenges, and changes in our everyday lives. The percentage of older adults in more developed countries is continuously increasing, so the aging process will be more intense in the future. In order to understand the aging process, we need to consider it in terms of aging of human cells, which in turn brings about physical and cognitive changes and life adjustments in the individual. Demographic changes in the EU. The population of the 27 European states is aging. Indeed, on the 1st of January 2019, it was estimated at 446.8 million, of which young people, from 0 to 14 years old, made up 15.2%, while persons considered to be of working age, 15 to 64 years old, accounted for 64.6% of the population. Older persons, aged 65 or over, had a 20.3% share, representing an increase of 0.3% compared with the previous year and 2.9% compared with 10 years earlier. Another demographic aspect being considered is dependency. Old age dependency ratio is used to study the level of support given to older adults by the working age population. This ratio is expressed in terms of the relative size of older population compared with the working age population. For the EU 27, it was 31.4% on the 1st of January 2019. As such, there were just over 3 working age persons for every person aged 65 or over, versus a world average of 14%. The growth in the relative share of older people may be explained by increased longevity, a pattern that has been apparent for several decades as life expectancy has risen. On the other hand, consistently low fertility levels over many years have contributed to the population aging, with further births leading to a decline in the proportion of young people in the total population. According to Eurostat projections for 2100, the EU 27 population is projected to continue aging. In the coming decades, the number of older people will increase significantly. Another aspect of population aging is the progressive aging of the older population itself, as the relative significance of the very old is growing faster than any other age segment of the EU 27 population. According to Eurostat, the share of those aged at least 80 years in the EU 27 population is projected to increase from 5.8% to 14.6% between 2019 and 2100. European policies to respond to population aging. The European Union has been tackling the issue of demographic aging through various policies, mainly focusing on the impact of aging on the labor market and health and long-term care. For example, the EU Work-Life Balance Directive entered into force in August 2019. The directive introduces a set of legislative actions designed to modernize the existing EU legal and policy frameworks, with the aim, among others, of better supporting a work-life balance for carers, introducing the entitlement for workers providing personal care or support to a relative of 5 days of leave per year, and extending the right to request flexible working arrangements. The approval of the European Pillar of Social Rights in 2017 sets out 20 fundamental principles representing the beacon of a strong social Europe. Among those, it is relevant to mention Chapter 3, which includes principles referring to the following: the right of old age income, the right to timely access to affordable, preventative, and curative healthcare of good quality, the right to inclusion for people with disabilities, and the right to affordable long-term care services of good quality, in particular, home care, and community-based services. The launch of a new green paper on the challenges and opportunities of Europe's aging society started in January 2021 and aims to take a life cycle approach, reflecting on the universal impact of aging on all generations and stages of life. In doing so, it highlights the importance of striking the right balance between sustainable solutions for our welfare systems and strengthening intergenerational solidarity. Why is the demographic change an important issue? Demographic change in Europe involves not only radical shifts in the age composition of European populations, but also impacts on intergenerational relationships. In general, families are becoming smaller, with fewer siblings, increasingly deinstitutionalized, as many people prefer not to marry or register their couple officially. Additionally, Increasing number of couples do not actually live together. All these patterns make families and kinship complex, diversified, and fluid. Particular challenges stem from the rapid increase in this share of the oldest old. This group is likely to require more care and be at a higher risk of social exclusion than the younger old. In most European countries, we can observe a shift in care provision from the institutional setting to home care services, with institutional care being postponed to a later age and demand for informal care projected to increase. Population aging in Europe impacts the demand for informal care and the supply, with the proportion of informal carers increasing with age. While the prevalence of informal caring within Europe's adult population is 17%, in the over 50s age group, the same rate ranges between 13.5 and 25.6%. According to research, there is a projected increase in care by spouses or partners, primarily due to projected reductions in male mortality rates, and a likely fall in the number of widows. Care for older people from their adult children may be affected by the future availability, ability, or willingness of children to provide care. This can be affected by demographic and socioeconomic factors, such as the projected decline in people with no surviving children, the decline in co-residence of older people with their children, and the continuing rise in labor market participation by midlife women. The care gap, availability versus demand for informal carers, is projected to grow because of underlying demographic trends. The number of older people, especially the oldest old, is rising faster than the number of the younger generation. The demographic pyramid is changing, with an exponential increase in the average life expectancy, and therefore in the number of older adults. People live longer, but with lower quality of life. The increased number of people suffering from chronic and disabling diseases and the lack of long-term care have created new needs. Given that healthcare and formal care do not proliferate at the same pace as the needs of older adults, informal carers are responsible for providing care and support at home at several levels. So, who are informal carers? According to different authors, the definition of an informal caretaker, although with some distinctions, presents some common aspects regarding the type of support provided. In this sense, an informal carer is a member of the family, a friend, or a neighbor who, in an unpaid position, provides support to a physically, emotionally, financially, or informally ill or physically disabled person. Eurocarers simplifies this concept by defining it as a person who provides, usually, unpaid care to someone with a chronic illness, disability, or other long-lasting health or care need outside a professional or formal framework. Culturally, the family is generally the first line of response regarding care. Across Europe, most care is provided by relatives. Some scholars estimate the percentage of informal carers between 60 and 80%, and some say it is between 75 and 90%. Regarding the socio-demographic characteristics of family carers, studies are not unanimous. In terms of age, research shows a predominance of middle-aged people as carers. However, some authors refer to an increase in younger carers. Regarding the kinship with the person cared for, spouses occupy the first place, immediately followed by children. For other researchers, the ratio is the inverse, with children being the primary carers, followed by spouses. In terms of gender, studies show a predominance of women as main carers. According to Campbell, 2010, daughters are more likely to be their parents' carers than their brothers, who rely on their wives if married when fulfilling the carer role. Although, for a long time, caring was primarily considered to be women's work, some authors have mentioned the growing role of men as family carers. Carers are a heterogeneous group, and their response to caring correlates to their age, sex, and relationship with the dependent person. Why are informal carers important? Informal caretakers are essential since they guarantee and provide the majority of care in Europe. The types of care include personal care, financial management, transportation, emotional support, and other dimensions of care. Carers are invaluable to society as they allow the cared-for person to remain at home for longer, providing humane and dignified care. Most informal carers have a great deal of experiential knowledge about the care provision gained through contact with various health and social professionals, which should be recognized and built upon. Informal carers are crucial since they support their loved ones with personal care, domestic tasks, emotional support, and medical care. They advocate for those who receive care and cannot or will not speak for themselves. Informal carers are highly valued from a social and humanitarian standpoint, since most informal carers care for vulnerable groups, such as people with disabilities, dementia, chronic disease, or other conditions. They do this not because of personal interest, but because others need this support. Beside its humanitarian dimension, informal care represents a high economic saving on formal care costs. Caring and its impact on those who carry out the role and those who receive care engage civil, political, and socioeconomic rights, which justifies the importance of informal carers in our society. Different roles and experiences of informal carers. The caring process may translate into very different experiences and perspectives. Caring for a relative can have a positive or a negative impact on the care. Positive aspects of caring for someone include feelings of affection and closeness within the caring relationship, and a sense of personal satisfaction and purpose in life. However, in general, the impact of caring is quite negative on the carer, since providing care for a person with a chronic illness is ongoing, demanding, and stressful. Therefore, it is likely to negatively affect carers' mental health and well-being. Despite the type of impact, whether it is positive or negative, it can be influenced by the type of kinship. According to Penning and Wu, 2016, although caring is in general stressful, caring for an older parent seems particularly stressful and consequently has a more negative impact on the care receiver's mental health and well-being than is caring for an older spouse or another family member. A study by Bruggen et al., 2016, involving 2,701 carers, concluded that adult children encounter more problems, which are also more challenging to manage. Several aspects can help predict the effect caring will have on carers. They include the characteristics of the person to be cared for and their level of dependency, the type of disease. In cases of cognitive illness, such as dementia, the negative impact is more significant than the positive effects, the duration of care, the unpredictability of its course, and the previous relationship with the care. The caring process seems to exacerbate the pre-existing connections and difficulties in family relationships. From previous work developed under the scope of the Sincala project, it is possible to state that, in general, adult children perceive their roles as carers of their parents as a way to reciprocate what they had done for them during their lives. Kinship is at the center of the experience of being a carer for their parents. However, in cases where the relationship between parents and children was already complicated, the perception and feelings about the caring role were mainly reported negatively, influenced by the pre-existing relationship with parents. As mentioned before, the type of disease also impacts the burden felt by carers and the relationship between family members. In this case, in the face of a dementia diagnosis, the decision-making about care becomes a family matter. This can cause difficulties between siblings with different understandings of the parent's illness and needs. In another study by Roberto and Jarrett, 2008, wives appear to show higher levels of depression and poor quality of social interactions. Although becoming a carer of their spouse seems the natural step for spouses, motivated either by love, emotional bond, or by a sense of duty or marital responsibility, they also point to difficulties and challenges regarding caring. Taking care of a spouse is financially and emotionally demanding. The constant feeling of fear for the spouse's safety and well-being seems familiar to most carers. Burden, constant tiredness, the feeling of losing their partner, and becoming a carer and no longer a spouse, and the sense of being a prisoner are some of the negative and challenging aspects that spouses mentioned. Carers' needs. Carers are an essential and central part of care and are involved in everything from medical decisions, for example, medication choices, to emotional support. Despite their significant role, carers' needs are often overlooked in conversation. Carers' needs are influenced by several aspects, for instance, kinship. From work developed in Sincala, children with a carer role need information and training, support from other relatives, and financial support. Spouses also highlight the need for information about the disease of the person they care for and financial support. Grandchildren mention the need for psychological support. The sociocultural context where the carers live may also impact their needs. Different contexts may influence the care type and who provides it. For instance, there are countries where patients and carers rely on a network of well-established formal services, such as daycare, home care, and long-term care facilities. In other countries where there is a scarcity or lack of these services, relatives assume the primary responsibility for providing care. All of this will, consequently, impact carers' needs. The literature reveals that carers' needs include receiving information on the disease, supportive healthcare resources, and access to health services. Other needs are related to the performance of instrumental support activities, fear of not providing proper care, and lack of information on the health condition. The condition or situation of the person who is receiving care has a significant impact on carers' needs. For example, caring for a loved one with dementia can be burdensome, and many carers suffer from reduced quality of life, limiting social engagement and support, depression, and anxiety. When comparing carers of people with dementia to other carers, the former had significantly worse subjective well-being and physical health. Some informal carers report sudden behavioral changes in care recipients or relatives. Often, informal carers report missing the person who was there before the diagnosis. Some relatives report that people with dementia repeatedly insult them or sometimes even become physically violent. In this sense, the most frequently mentioned need of carers of someone with dementia is related to the carer's health, particularly their emotional health. Although several different aspects impact carers' needs, they generally are related to the carer's emotional health, formal or informal help received from others, and the information about the disease or situation of the care recipient. The wide-ranging needs and complex caregiving contexts highlight the importance of understanding and assessing the unique needs of carers. In this sense, more information is crucial. It can convey different areas: self-care, relationship management with others involved in caring, social interactions such as communication and empathy, and general information like the disease evolution and consequences and available social support. This is it for today's lecture. Thank you for watching. In the next lecture, we will continue talking about the challenges of caregiving relationships and focus on coping strategies. Don't forget to complete the weekly assignment to move on to the next module of the course. Goodbye.